Hello, everybody. Welcome to season 2 of Holy Foley. I'm Dr. Vanessa Thiemann, and I'm very excited to start season 2 with my guest today, Martin Langenbach of Germany. He's a Foley artist, but he also has put together the consortium of many Foley artists in Europe, which I think is a very magnanimous thing to do and quite unusual. So I'm really excited to talk to him about that. And in this consortium, he's always got, in addition to this beautiful website where you can go to, and we will put this on the screen so that you can go to it, resources for people, podcasts and videos and all sorts of things where people can see what's going on in the world of Foley. So I'm very excited to welcome Martin and talk about how he got started, how you got started, Martin, and what you've done, how you do Foley in Germany, the history of it, and anything else you want to share. So with that, we shall get started. Hi, Martin. How are you?
Thank you. Hi, Vanessa. I'm fine. Thank
It,
you for being here.
oh, well, it's a delight to speak with you. So I looked back and saw that you were doing Foley in the 90s, and I would like very much to hear about what your entry was, what your entry point was, and how you got into this.
Yes, I started about 96, I guess, just as an intern in a studio. It was a 2 year internship. So I had to do this because I wanted to study sound in Berlin. And during that time, I was doing this internship in a film sound mixing stage. There was only mixing, no Foley, no sound editing, nothing. And we had some rooms where the picture editing, there was some picture editing was going on.
And
And
what was the name of the studio?
it is Konken Studios in Hamburg.
Okay.
It was in the 90s, it was pretty big. And yeah, times are hard. It, I think it's not that big anymore, but it's still in the business. And yeah, there was a mix of a film, art film, like an yeah, some guy talking and walking around and having some philosophical speeches. And there was a scene where a man was walking through high grass to a tree and had a speech. And those steps were missing. And the boss asked me if I would like to try. Then he gave me this 1/4 inch tape and said, so this is how it is done. You take this in your hand and then shuffle around. And then we have the steps. And I went into the speaking, the recording for voices room, took my 1/4 inch tape and shaked it a little bit. And he was not straightly walking. He was walking and was jumping and so on. So it was not straight directly to the camera. And I did all these jumps. So it was quite easy. And it was first take and it was in the mix. And then he asked me if if I'm interested in going on in that. I said, oh, I was I was 24. I thought, yeah, that's easy. So why not? So as a young person, you say always, yeah, why not? Yeah, well, let's try. So I tried, and it was yeah my yeah it was lucky for me that he gave me the chance to try. So he organized Foley for a TV series, and I did Foley. Of course, it was completely bullshit what I did. Um, but also the picture editor. Um, I think she spent 2 extra weeks or whatever to train with me to get it done, and we finally could do something. So the director is still not amused. So 20, how many years later? 69 to now, it's 30 years, about 28 years later. Anyhow, this was the beginning. And then I had the opportunity came up that there was a film mix again in the studio and the sound team from Munich. And there was a colleague of the sound designer who was Foley artist in Munich, and he was looking for an assistant. And it was the time when in Germany assistants got paid by the production. So it's no longer like that. So I said again, yeah, why not? So I gave him a phone call. What about me? Should I come? And he said, yeah, come on, come on. And he invited me to Munich. So everything was just coming by natural, just came. And I was going to Munich to assist. Not very long. Usually those assistants is 4 years, 5 years. You grow with the master and work with him. I was there for not a complete year, not 1 year, less than a year. It happened that his mixer was quitting and he had to find a new mixer. So he had the problem that he had someone to learn doing Foley, and he had another one who was learning mixing the Foley. So he had to decide what he needs, and he decided, I need the mixer, I don't need my assistant. So he sent me back. I went back to Hamburg into the studio where I was before and continued doing sound work. But at that time, we also started building up a sound editing department. So it was not only mixing, it was also sound editing at starting up.
Mhm.
So we started with audio at that time, and I was doing a lot of dialogue editing.
Boy, you learn a lot
I
dialogue editing, don't you? You really learn a lot when you
actually really
you really do.
I did, and I think I was also before I went to Munich, I was editing dialogue, I
Oh.
guess. But what I actually was more interested in the sound beside the dialogue. So I always knew when I was doing the dialogue editing, I would later on going into my little corner to do some footsteps and do some Foley. So I was interested in what's already there, what can be used, what do I have to do to get it work. So that was my main interest. And the other interest was what can I do to make the original version of the film sound, yeah, more or less the same like the international version. So I took all the pieces of dialogue to a track and tried to fix the international version. I was not that much interested in the dialogue at that time, actually. So I was, yeah, I was learning a lot. Then I went to Munich, then I came back, and then I continued that way and did even more. And at one point, I did a film where a sound designer from Iceland was doing the sound design and I was doing the Foley. And he introduced me to the Danish film industry. So then I traveled a lot from Hamburg to Copenhagen and worked for them.
Mhm.
This is when I met a French guy doing Foley in Copenhagen. Actually, the brother
Julien
of
Nadin.
Nodin.
Julien Nadin, yeah.
Yeah,
I've I've I've
exactly.
I've spoken to him and wrote about him in one of the editions of the Holy Grail. He's a very interesting character, and recently I interviewed his brother.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I've seen this episode.
yeah,
Yeah.
who's also a
And
very
and this
interesting
is
guy.
this is how it comes, yeah.
Yeah.
So one step after the other. That was my beginnings. Not only working in Hamburg, I was also traveling to Halle in East in Sachsen-Anhalt, Saxony-Anhalt, or whatever it's in English. I don't know. Close to Leipzig. And yeah, I think I learned a lot during all these working here and working there. Actually, in Denmark, I started doing my steps not sitting anymore. So I stood up and
Yeah.
did my steps standing.
So
That's what I learned in Denmark. Yeah.
let's talk about that for a second, because I'm aware that the German tradition had been, and we in America were, well, we in Hollywood, I should say, because that's where I worked. But we always found it humorous because I worked with somebody. I told Bastian this, Bastian Gelner, that I was aware of that German style of sitting in a chair and doing the footsteps because I had worked on a film called Jake Speed, where um, the man who hired me to do it had done it German style himself. And we'd all heard about him sitting in a chair and doing it, which to us seemed very odd, but whatever works. And so I was aware of it. And when I saw the video of you on YouTube where you were doing it in a Foley pit, I wondered where you'd learned that tradition. And I know that that's what Julian does. And I know that the French do that. The other thing that I noticed when I watched the YouTube was that you had all the rooms set up the way he learned. So this French style of having various rooms set up to duplicate what you do in the house, in homes and stuff, is really catching on. And I saw that you had a room set up in this video that you were showing in without our seeing, it was all in German, and I'm going, I don't know German. And I'm finding that so fascinating because, of course, the United States has its very fixed way of doing things. And I really, while it works beautifully and the whole American system works beautifully, and I'm very proud of being from Hollywood, I am very fascinated, as I say every time I talk to someone from another country, with all the different ways people have solved the same kind of problems.
I worked with a guy who was working with worked with a mixer who worked with Julian.
Yeah.
And this mixer always said Julian would do it like this, or he would do it like that. At
And
one point I
Julianne
had
is,
to say,
I'm sorry.
but he's not here, so I'm sorry he's not here.
Yeah,
But I'm here right now.
right. And
So
I understand that
but
because
he told me a lot. I have my personal way of doing it, but he told me a lot. He told me just how Julian is doing it, and I thought, why not? It's good. It's different, but fascinating. And I remember he also showed me. He once he said, come on." He get me out of the studio. I was working with someone else. I have to show you something. And then he showed me a track of a British Foley artist, a woman. I just forgot her name. Anyhow, he showed me one single track of a distant burning house. And she did this with a plastic bottle in front of the microphone, or whatever, the microphone with the bottle, and was click doing manipulating this plastic bottle, and it was kind of distortion in the microphone. And I remember that my master in Munich did the same with the mouth, just blowing into the microphone to do explosions like that. So this is actually when I learned to improvise, to try things, to figure out what can be done. How can I solve the problem? How can I try to get things work? Very often that people ask me to do some fun sound, so we need something funny here. And my way of thinking about the fun in together with a picture is not that much of a bang bang sound, but it's more
uh-huh.
like a kind of a brutal, unexpected thing.
Hmm.
So this makes it people see and then start laughing afterwards. So
Uh-huh.
if the sound is not commenting the picture, but if the sound is kind of unexpected, and I would say sometimes really kind of over the top brutal. That can be very funny. This is what I think.
What attracted you to doing sound for film to begin with?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I just, like told you, I just run into it and then I was there. And yeah, I have a musical education. We were singing a lot at home. I played the violin, I played the drums later on. And I think this is a basic thing. But yeah, what attracted me to do film sound? I don't really know. I just I just fell into it and I fell in love probably, and that's how it is. I
Do you,
can't really answer this question.
so where are you working now?
I'm right now working in Hamburg in my studio, which I opened 2008,
Wow.
and yeah, this is what I do. I'm sometimes traveling. I'm sometimes travel to Berlin or to Halle, and doing a lot of Danish films and Norwegian films and Swedish films in my studio in Hamburg, and also Swiss films and Austrian films.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah,
that you were born in Switzerland.
exactly.
Yeah,
And I'm gonna move. I'm gonna move back.
you are.
I am in 2 weeks. This
Well,
is
you're going to pack up your studio and put it in your suitcase and take it with you, or?
actually Foley is a lot of improvisation,
Oh
I
yeah,
would say.
yeah.
And my wife and I, we decided to buy a house in the Swiss mountains, which we did, and it has a barn next to it. Everything is a little bit smaller than here, and it will take a while until it's done. So, and I will continue my work here in Hamburg until I have set up my Swiss new playground, and then I move with my studio. But in 2 weeks, I'm moving out of my house here and go to Switzerland, back
Okay,
home.
so now I have a few questions. You were learning some stuff um, in Denmark, and I'm assuming that you went back and forth and you were working in Germany and moving around and learning, and then working at various studios, right?
Yes,
And then you finally decided to have your own place. And then
yes.
what made you decide that you want to go back to Switzerland, which I have not been to yet? And now I'm thinking, I have to go visit you there. But what made you decide?
Yes, you're
I would love to see Switzerland. What made you decide that you
um
go to Switzerland?
it's not my own decision. So it's my wife's and my decision. And we are living in Hamburg since long time ago. And she's from South Germany, and it's loud. It's
It is.
actually really loud here. And we were in Switzerland having a holiday, and it was very nice, very silent. And at some point, there was this thought born, if we could manage to actually go there. And it was, yeah, quite of a process. And we decided, yeah, we can do that. And it's a lot of ups and downs.
Mhm.
So now I'm up.
Yeah,
But I was also down at one point.
yeah,
Anyhow,
a lot of ups and downs.
um, yeah, it was just an idea, personal idea, and my relatives are living there. Not all of them, but a lot of my sisters living there, my cousins, aunt and uncle, and
So
so I thought
do
could be a
you
good idea.
so do you mix your own Foley, or will you need a mixer?
This is something also possible since a few years. We can also remote record. So I have my mixer in Hamburg, but he's coming from Berlin. So I have actually two mixers, which are regularly coming from Berlin to Hamburg for a job. So, and they are in Hamburg at my studio. But if there, sometimes we have just, let's say, a day to do in a week. And then he stays or she stays in Berlin. And then we do a remote session. So I'm not recording with Pro Tools, I'm recording with Nuendo.
Uh-huh.
And and they have invented a tool which is not perfect, I must say, but it has remote control, so the mixer can control my picture. The picture is on my computer, so it's not transferred. Only the sound is transferred. There are two microphone lines transferred to Berlin, and he's mixing there. So this has some things are not good with that. So he has to mix it in the computer. It's digitized and mixed together digital. So he cannot use any outboard, whatever he would like to have, like a filter with knobs or so. There are limitations, but it's possible and the sound quality is good and the delay is not bad sometimes, but usually not. And yeah, we have checked out, we have tried out, we made tests, we talked to some guys from the software Nuendo people to make it better and even better, and it's gonna be like that. So
So,
we are.
so what project, like, have you worked on a film that way recently?
I Not a feature, not a feature cinema film, but a TV series
Like what
we
series?
did, yes.
What series? If somebody wanted to go
Um,
check it out, I mean, if somebody had access to this series, because I know it's German, we don't get a lot of those over here in the United States, but somebody might be able to want to go look and see what that would look like.
Actually, it's Danish, the
Danish.
series, Danish, and it's yeah, it's hard for me to say the name. It's Sygeplejeskolen.
Yeah, I
So
have trouble
it's
with.
a nursing school. So it's just a story from the 50s, I guess, where
Mhm.
the first male nurses are educated, and male and female work as is nurse also male or
Uh-huh. Yes.
uh, male nurse and female nurses are working together and all these conflicts and love and
Uh-huh.
whatever. So it's quite some talking film with a little bit of action once in a while. So it's not that much to do. But it's nice. It's a tiny little
So,
thing.
so in Nuendo, the technique, because I know several people that use that, um, this is allowing you to make a change in your life and still work. I know several people that do this. And I spoke with some people in Ukraine last year when the war was, just a few months old. Um, and it was for a handbook on sound studies that's coming out in October with Routledge. And I wrote about Foley, and I was curious what was going on in Ukraine. And I contacted a Foley mixer there, and they weren't able to get into Kiev. And he was staying home and he was mixing remotely. So I knew it was
Yeah,
possible, but it was complicated.
it
Uh,
is. It is.
yeah. And it's hard for me to imagine because, that's I have never been involved with something like that, but ADR gets, mixed. It gets mixed remotely a lot. We have a mixer in Atlanta who does a lot of ADR remotely, so it's not that different because
Mhm.
you're syncing up sound and recording it from somewhere else, and you need to hear the sound quality. The only difference is that it's with items and it's footsteps and it's different textures and it's different volumes. I mean, it's more complicated, but the process isn't that different. Um,
Yeah.
and I would really like to see, I'd like to watch that. I think that'd be very interesting to watch. Um, let's talk about
What
how,
we also, yeah, what we also tried is he's my mixers are recording on a disk, which is syncing to my server di permanently. So after the session, I have the things in my house immediately, and I can copy it and listen to it, which is really nice.
he's recording on a
So
disc. He's recording on a disc.
on a disk
He's
on
recording
a
on, so he's not recording. Okay,
no,
that
he's recording on his computer, but his
right,
computer
right.
is syncing to my server.
Wow.
He's directly syncing to my server, and I can just get the files and the session directly. When we stop, I have everything, and
So
I
it's
can
not like
just open
it's
the session and listen to it.
so he doesn't have to send it to you. That's interesting.
Exactly. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
technology
That's
has really changed.
that was my wish to let's say to record. And I'm kind of a control freak as well, so I always like to listen,
Yeah,
and I always ask, what if you move it a little bit earlier? What if you gain up this
yeah,
and lower down this one? And I have to bring myself a little bit down and do the recordings, and maybe we stop at 4 o'clock and not at 6 o'clock, but then I listen to it and I do notes and say, okay, I would like to redo this or redo that.
yeah.
So this is the idea.
So it changes the workflow a little bit when you're not in
Yeah.
the same room. I see. Tell me
And one other
sorry.
thing is I'm gonna definitely miss the breaks.
Yeah,
So if you have a pause, you usually talk.
yeah,
But
the
if
relationship,
one
yeah,
is in Berlin, the other one is somewhere else, you will not have this break. And then you probably talk more during the recordings.
yeah.
We'll see.
It really does change the
We'll
nature
see
of
how
the
this.
workflow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to know what gave you the notion to put together Foley Artists UE or EU. What prompted you to put together this group where you have all of this website with all of these Foley artists on it, and then all of these resources and the podcasts and the films and the videos and everything? What prompted you to do that?
It's also quite long ago that probably always, everywhere in the world, there's fights for money. So Foley is one of the last things to be done in the film
Yeah,
process, and the money is gone, and people are discussing, productions are discussing for half a day less, and we want to have 2 days more, and there's a lot of things like that. And I was at a point I was writing an open letter. So I was just writing down my thoughts and thought about this as an open letter. Why Foley in Germany will no longer exist later. So the thought was, it is not, if it is ever going down, if it is ever happen that there's no more Foley, it will not be because it's needed, or it's not no longer needed, or it is bad. It is because there's no one coming after us. So there's no education, there's no one coming up. And this is because there's no money for education. So people try to survive themselves, and young Foley artists have to, let's say, yeah, there's no one to teach them. So they have to find out how to do sounds themselves. They have to get the opportunity. I hope I can say a little bit. Can make clear what I was saying. It's a bit complicated, but that was the thought in this open letter, and this was never published, but I sent it to some colleagues, and this was when after that letter, we decided to meet. And this was the first meeting of, let's say, 20 Foley artists and mixers in one room in Berlin. And 2 or 3 were via internet connection. And we thought about working together, being open. I actually don't know what we decided, but it happened that we were all in one room, and that was the start when we all were thinking about what can we do, yeah, to gain up the profession, or to make it more public, or to make it more. So it happened. It also happened that earlier times the production companies um, made the whole film. So they did the pre-production, they did the production, and they also organized the post-production. And then at one point, when things get digital, and we had more green screen and stuff like that, the whole post-production process was outsourced. And there were companies coming in which did this post-production deals. They say, okay, we do all the video effects for you, and sound is for free. We put sound on top. So
Wow.
they were and we were dealing with this. So we had the feeling that the production companies didn't know what we do. So they lost the knowledge of what's coming after the film editing. So of course, they knew that there's someone doing the sound, and they, of course, know that there's a mix in the end, but they didn't know what exactly was going on and who had what kind of wishes and needs and whatever. And this is actually one of the reasons why we did this website, and to yeah to promote Foley public. And it's not European at the moment. It's only German. So we have only German members. I would very much like and love to have all the Europeans involved. And but I must say I'm not that much actively searching. So it's a lot of work. Took a lot of time to get this done. And I'm very happy that we have a nice web page online. And yeah, the idea also was to let interested people see films, informations, like a collection of everything. You can search the web and you find a lot, but you
Right.
also find some bullshit or crap or whatever. So I wanted to have
Yeah.
uh, good information collected on that site, in this page with useful information, where we show all kinds of interviews, and yeah, it's basically interviews, podcasts, little films about different people from all over the world.
I think the more that the discussion is opened up, that gets the mind really thinking, it becomes more obvious that this is a very creative and imaginative art form and craft. And I think the expansion of technology has been a double-edged sword, because while it's made some things more possible, it's caused those who don't understand what we do to think that it's just pushing buttons and that anybody can
Mhm.
make these sounds.
You have to start explaining what you're doing, then why isn't it recorded on set?
What's changed is that the people who spend the money, they say, well, why am I spending money on technology if I still have to spend money on labor? The technology is the tool, and the technology has always been the tool, whether it was mag film or 24 track or 8 track and then digital. It's just the tool that we use, but you always needed the people. The joke we had in Hollywood was they're going to think any guy with a computer in his garage can edit sound. I had this discussion with Gary Rydstrom. Someone in post-production has to understand the entire filmmaking system. We have to understand the way the whole movie's made. I'm enjoying getting to know you. And once you're in Switzerland, I think we're going to have to do another session of Martin in Switzerland.
Actually, what I did,
Set up.
I went with my microphone into the barn, put my microphone in the barn, and made a hand test, just rubbing my hands in front of the microphone for a sound test. So I know this is not the loudest sound.
Of course not.
And I recorded this, went back to Hamburg into my studio and listened to it. And the background noise was really, really little. And it was not covered. So they were like, yeah, wood play with a lot of holes. So it was not closed barn. So even if it was not closed, there was very little background noise. And I really think this can be really good. I will also not only the barn but also the house. I would like to have
Yeah.
microphones in the house, in the bathroom, in the kitchen, and everywhere. So it's
Yeah.
gonna be improvisation. I continue improvisation.
Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it, Martin. This is a joy.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
I started listening to all your podcasts and made a short introduction and present this on the foleyartists.eu website as every 10 day there's a new episode coming.
What I'm trying to do is make these connections and widen
Yeah.
the conversation and make it a much deeper conversation. And I want to get more philosophical about it
Yeah.
because there's a
Yeah.
deeper conversation to be had. And I'll tell you, that's the antidote to the people who don't understand what we do, thinking all we do is push buttons and cut little sounds and sync them up. If they understand the deep philosophical notions that go into our art form, I think, and how it works with all of the soundscape, I think we make ourselves a little more valuable because they'll understand more. I think the reason people don't understand what we do is they don't understand just how deep this performative aspect of sound is.
I continue to listen to your podcasts and they are all very, very interesting. I love them.
Thank you. I know a lot of really fascinating people, and I'm always looking to find out what they know, and so thank you.